For many years prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government engaged buses to provide many services, including that of transporting health workers island-wide. 16 buses were engaged prior to COVID-19 and were being paid $2,000 and $4,000 per month without any issues. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the precautionary measures that government had to initiate to safeguard the population, the government had to revisit the system in place and provide additional transportation for its essential workers. 36 more buses were contracted in the health sector alone. Government held discussions with representatives of the Bus Association and gave them the opportunity to select buses for these new contracts, with the hope that the contracts would have been rotated among membership of the Bus Association. On receipt of invoices for the first month, which were exorbitantly high, considering the magnitude of financial burdens placed on the government to keep the nation safe during this COVID period, government expressed concerns to the Bus Association. In some cases, the total amount for one bus was as high as $42,000, in addition to the $4,000 under the pre-COVID contracts. The Ministries of Transport and Health negotiated reasonable rates between $3,000 and $3,500 per month and instituted a rotation system so more busmen can benefit from this opportunity.
When you put the figures together, for the 50 or so buses that was doing the service for the month, the figures would have been over $600,000 for that period. So it was quite a huge sum. So we had asked them to reconsider and make some cuts. We tried to work with some of the cuts that they were suggested. Even the price remained very high. Because when they said to me that the prices that they suggested was within, let's say, the $100 to the $170 per trip, based on the distance that they are coming from, my understanding of it was a wrong trip. It only the reality actually hit when the bills start coming in and you realize the trip was a one-way trip. All right, and that contributed to the high figure. The ministry per se never offered them the $17 that they spoke about. We would have applied the figure that was recommended by the cabinet, which would have been $3,000 in some cases and $3,500 for the period. Yes, all of them was paid. We would have closed the program just about a week ago. Any outstanding fees would be for that last part of the period that we are currently processing. But for the first period, everybody, checks were written for everybody. The great majority, more than 90% of them would have already collected that first check.
In response to the new rates, members of the association discouraged buses from accepting the new rates and encouraged its members to withhold their services. This has resulted in a number of Grenadians unable to return to work after months of not making an income in some cases. Peter McEwen, a bus operator on the Zone 6 route, says that this would not be the case if busmen had followed proper negotiating procedures.
If you go into an institution to work, you have to sit down on the table and find argument of what pay you want. You can't just start working, and when you start working now, you just make a bill for $50,000 and bring it to the government. That wouldn't work. So the bossmen again, they make a wrong move again by just making a proposal, make up the bill and just drop it in. Big, high money. They're supposed to do that before they start to work. So I don't support them with that. They're supposed to do this bill thing with the Ministry of whosoever and make sure that they agree on a price first before they start working.
The withholding of services also came with additional demands, one of which was the increase of bus fares by 50 cents across the board. However, the government says this request calls for more dialogue and consultation. Permanent Secretary with responsibility for transport, Anna Brizan, says the government has acknowledged the request made by the National Bus Association, but cannot approve such a request in a time when the economy is financially strapped due to the impact of COVID-19.
The bus associations have requested to increase its fee at the rate of 50 cents per passenger across all zones and across all categories. So it's a universal increase. So both adults and students will be required to pay the additional 50 cents. We all appreciate the economic context we each is existing in, living in, and operating in. And government is mindful of this. Government is mindful of the implications of COVID on all sectors and all families.
To date, over $360,000 has been paid out by the government of Grenada to bus owners, making good on a stimulus package promise announced by Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dr. the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell. Consideration was given to busmen as a result of the loss of income due to the closure of borders and the implementation of a limited state of emergency to help contain the spread of COVID-19. Chanel Andrews is a strategic program manager at the Inland Revenue Department, assigned to the COVID Economic Support Unit. She says the package is $800 per bus for 3 months, April, May and June.
Thus far, we would have received just over 500 applications from bus owners. In some cases, one bus owner may have more than one bus, so they may have 3 to 4 buses or even more. So we are counting unique applications from individual bus owners. And it's just over about approximately 507 applications. We would have approved 438 applications and processed for payments thus far. The total value of paid out in term to date is 358,000, approximately. You could say average about 360,000. Every day we are forwarding, approving and forwarding for payments. We are still accepting applications. We have still been receiving applications for the month of April. Even if a bus owner decides to apply this month to the month of June, they can still apply for April if they have not applied for April as yet.
Andrew says the payment in itself is to assist the bus operators offset certain costs as a result of the lockdown period.
If you have been hired for the month of April but you are no longer on hire for May and June, you can still apply. In instances where buses are operating on the road, providing public transport due to the opening up of the sector, you can still take advantage of the program. One of the criteria for qualifying under the program, you must be registered with the National Insurance Scheme. And in several instances, we would have had in cases where persons have not been registered, especially those that are just strictly bus owners and drivers, self-employed. So we would have had to facilitate the registration process to assist them to qualify under the program. Also, in addition, banking information. Persons would have provided banking information for us, and the account numbers might have a digit missing. There's some error with the account number or the financial institutions, and we had to have return checks, etc., and contact the person. When these things happen, we have to re-enter the information all over in the system and forward over to the bank. So that is some of the challenges we have been facing.
Peter McEwen says he welcomes the help of the government, and while he stands in solidarity with his fellow bus operators, their call for the increase, in his view, is not timely. He says one has to weigh all the options that present itself at this time for families.
As a bus driver and an owner, I believe that we get out on the wrong foot. We busmen get out on the wrong foot in the first case. When you go into a government for help, or you have to bring a proposal to them, you go empty hand. You go without any document stating that you want this. The government has to send you back for that. But I find now that is the wrong time now that the busman is asking for 50 cents. There are many more things you could ask for than 50 cents right now. Because the 50 cents is not falling on the government. The 50 cents is falling on the poor class of people. Some people is home, some people are working, so the 50 cents. What we should do is to attack the government for certain things. Like the government gives us $800 for a month for 3 months. If you could ask them to extend it for us for another 3 months. If you ask the government to leave the gas price for 3 more months for us. If you could ask them to be optionable with conductors. If you want conductor or if you don't want conductor, who had to have a license. All of these we have to bring to the government. We have to get something from the government in their bag. You see, the 50 cents don't work in for the government. It's the people who are going to feel it. So in my take, I feel we get off on the wrong foot. So stand with me, boss, 100%. Because we need things. We come out under a crisis and it's a struggle. That's what I'm doing for my living. In the end of the day, it's what I'm doing for my living. So I stand with the boss man 100%. But I just said that they go off on the wrong foot. And I keep telling them that I'm not listening. It's a group of guys just going up front and make a set of shit. I don't know why they do that. Because you have to ask for things from the government. We're going to affect the government, not affect the poor people. So I never support that 50 cents.
The traffic department is keeping ahead of the issue and ensuring that members adhere to the protocols and approve fares until there is a change.
Things are rolling off smoothly. Sanitizing at all locations are running as per expected. Although I've been receiving some complaints that not all buses are making the complete trip, especially up at Sate. So I want to use this opportunity also to appeal to bus operators. Principal to the operations being effected for public transport is the assurance of buses ensuring that they come into the terminus to ensure at the end of every round trip that they are properly sanitized. And it is not at any cost to the bus operators. Government is taking up that slack there. And while we are at that, again, we have been receiving some complaints, very few this time, but I want to further assure the general public that the fares have not been increased. The negotiations as expressed by or indicated by our PS, we're at a point where we stopped or paused for some level of reflection. All of the concerns or recommendations tabled by the Bus Association is under review, but until a decision is taken, I want to again state that the bus fares remain as is. There is no increase in the bus prices. An announcement to that effect will be made maybe in a not too distant future, but it is tabled for consideration, and this of course has to come with a policy decision. And from where we sit at the planning committee, we are not in a position to make such a decision. That is beyond our purview.
P.S. Brazan, who has been a part of the discussions with members of the National Bus Association, says it was made clear to the National Bus Association negotiating team that all of the proposals brought to the table has to be analyzed before any decision is taken.
What is imperative to note, though, is the timing of this request. It is at the time of Grenada re-emerging from a nearly closed economy where revenue across sectors have dropped significantly. It is at a time when Grenadians return to work after 2 months of shelter in place. Several families have been affected either by the loss of incomes of 1 or 2 breadwinners, and they have also been affected by reduced salaries. Salaries in some cases have been reduced to 60% and 40%. And it is in this light that government would have articulated to the bus operators, while we understand the situation, there is a sensitivity to the time in which the request is being made. We have offered the bus operators to defer the matter in this moment and return to it at a later moment, at agreed time. We can agree to the time to allow the economy to continue the reopening, as well as to allow the economy to recover to a sufficiently safe level when government can entertain such a request. So I wish to make it abundantly clear, government has not dismissed the request of the bus operators. What government has said are 2 things. 1, we want you to be sensitive to the times that we are all living in. And government itself is sensitive to the bus operator's situation. And that's why it has so willingly stepped forward to protect all health in indicating that we can form a partnership with you to offset the cost which should have been yours as the owner of the vehicles, the owner of the tool of your trade. We are willing to help you meet the cost.
Government has also borne the cost of retrofitting the various bus terminuses to make it more comfortable for both operators and passengers. The government has been reaching out and will continue to engage bus operators to totally resolve this situation and to address other matters affecting their membership. I am Sherry Ann Noel. Thank you for viewing.